Hello everyone, this is Maureen and welcome to my crochet story. Today is Monday and that means we're here for another look at some basic stitches. But before we get started, let me say thank you to every single one of you for stopping by. Now, if you are new to my channel, take just a moment to go look and see what it is that I have, because I do have more than just basic stitches that I upload every week. Go take a look around, see if there's something that you like, and if you do, please consider hitting the subscribe button and then look for the bell with the little hugs on the side that will notify you every time I put content up. Now, don't think I forgot about you folks that come back and see me time after time after time. You know that you're dear to my heart, and I do appreciate your time here today. So, for basic stitches, I noticed, or I hope you noticed, that this is another look at the alternate stitch. Now, I thought when I was making up the scarf, as I was finishing my scarf, this would make such a cute little hat pattern. So I wanted to show you a different take on this alternate stitch. It works up really cute into this quick little beanie. I show you how to add this cute little topper if you don't want to add a pom-pom or the traditional pom-pom. Now it also looks just darling without any kind of topper at the top. And I'll also show you how to finish the edge here with just a very simple brim. So if you would like to see this very easy pattern that can be adapted to using any basic stitch, grab you some yarn. I use 4-weight acrylic yarn and an eye hook, and we'll get started here in just a minute after the intermission. See you in a second. Alright, so for this tutorial on how to take that alternate stitch and do something a little different with it, like I told you, I wanted to show you not only what the stitch looked like the last time and how we could turn it into a nice little scarf, but I got to thinking about it later as I finished up the scarf. I thought, oh my goodness, this would make such a very simple but cute beanie. So that's what I wanted to jump on here and show you for this week's basic stitches. So I'm going to be using some Mainstay. This is a Walmart brand yarn, and this is called Sparkle Acrylic Yarn. There are 251 yards in this skein. It is a medium 4-weight. I will be using the recommended I or 5.5 hook with it. Now remember that this acrylic, you can wash it and you can dry it, but you don't want to bleach it and you don't want to iron it, because I mean acrylic does have a tendency to melt or at least get that little crispy smudge look to it. And I don't know what this sign here means. I mean, I'm just not real certain. I've not seen that sign before. But anyway, so let's get started. I'm going to, let's see if I can figure out which side. Someone taught me that little trick. You just kind of bump it up and down a little bit. It's not on that side. Or over here. I'll be back in just a minute so I can pull this out. Alright, so I have gone ahead and made a chain of 27. Now remember that the alternate stitch is created by using any odd number that you want, and we are going to be working this in rows that when we get through with our rectangle, you know, they'll be standing up on one another. Now I'm also planning on making, excuse me, my rectangle to be about 56 to 60 rows. Now that sounds like a lot, but we want this to fit a 19 to 21 inch diameter head. So I'm going to get you started, and then once we get our rectangular piece made, then I will show you how we put that take that rectangle, put it together, and make ourselves a hat using this alternate stitch. I really think you're going to enjoy this. Now, I like for the body of my hat to be a little long. You may not want it. This is approximately 7.5 inches tall. You may not want it that tall for the body of your hat, and that's measuring from about the middle of your forehead to the crown of your head. Now, if you don't want it quite that long, you can always cut down on the number of chains. I wouldn't go any smaller than 21, but you know, it's just whatever your preference is, because we are going to be adding a self built-in little top knot to it, and we are going to be adding just a little bit around the bottom to give it a nice little brim. So once you've changed your odd number of stitches, like I said, I did 27, we're going to work the first of two double crochets into the third chain from the hook. Now remember, this loop here on your hook does not count as anything. It's just your starting working loop. So we're going to skip the first 2 loops, and I'm going to work into this back loop of the chain. Now if you would rather work in the top loop, that's fine, but I'm going to turn it over and work in the 1, 2, 3rd chain from the hook, and I'm going to put 2 single crochets into this very first chain. Not the first chain, but the 3rd chain, making our first stitches. And then remember, the alternate stitch is we skip a stitch and we put in 2 more single crochets, and that's all we're going to do all the way across the chain. Skip a chain, put 2 single crochets. Skip a chain, put 2 single crochets. Skip a chain, put 2 single crochets, and you're going to work that all the way down. Skip. Now the nice thing about this little hat pattern is that you can use any of the basic stitches that we've learned so far and use the same technique. Here I'm using single crochets. It would work if you wanted to use the half double crochet, and also with the double crochet, putting 2 stitches in the same loop and then skipping the next. I just like using the single crochet, or the alternate stitch as it's called, because it gives it a little bit more of a rustic look. And skip. A little more fullness to the stitch. Skip, and here we are in our last chain. Put 2 single crochets. Now we're going to chain 2. You are always going to chain 2 at the end of your work, at the end of your row, excuse me, and turn. Alright, so now I am ready to start on the second row. So we've chained 2. I'm going to skip this very first stitch here at the bottom of our chain 2. That's our first single crochet. We're going to go right into that next single crochet and put 2 single crochets in that stitch. Skip the next one, put 2 single crochets. Skip the next one, put 2 single crochets. Now be careful as you're going across here. Be sure you pay attention to where you're skipping and where you're putting your next single crochet, because it is very easy to skip 2 instead of 1. Skip the next one. 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 Skip the next one, and we're coming down here to the end of the row, and as I said earlier, skip. We will only be working till we get to the end of the row into this last single crochet. Now you might think that this is where you're supposed to be working, but remember that's your chain 2 to turn the row, or actually this was our chain 2 when we began the first row. We are never going to work into that chain 2 loop there. So we're going to skip, and into that last single crochet we're going to put 2 double crochets. Chain 2 and turn our work. And you can already see that nice pretty little texture there that's starting to develop. I just really love this stitch for making quick little hats. Remember, I'm going to skip the first single crochet and put 2 single crochets into the next stitch. And I'll work this row with you, and then I'm going to let you just take off and finish your little rectangle to whatever length you need it to be to fit the size hat that you want. And then we'll come back together and I'll show you how we're going to finish the hat off. But I'll go ahead and finish this third row with you. Now, as simple as this may seem, you can mess up by not paying attention to where you're supposed to be skipping single crochets and where you're supposed to be working into them. Believe me, I know. As you can tell, I'm still working out how to work with these furls hooks. It's not so much the head here I'm having to work with, it's where I put my hands up here, but got to work with them sometimes, folks. And again, we're coming down to the end of the row, and see how this chain 2 space may look like the last stitch you're supposed to work into. It's not, it's just there to give you a nice edge. So we're going to skip the last one and go into that last single crochet. Chain 2, turn your work, and go at it again. Now, like I said, for me, because of the not only the height but the width of the hat that I want, I'm going to look at crocheting about anywhere from 55 to 60 rows. So I will come back and meet you whenever I have that number of rows that I want for my rectangle, and then I'll show you how we're going to finish it off to make it into a hat. So see you in just a little bit. Alright, so I am back. I ended up doing 64 rows. That give me, I believe I measured it just a minute ago. Sorry for the clicking. 21 inches. Yeah, I think you can see that. So now I'm ready to put these 2 ends together. Now, you know, you could have stopped at any point if you wanted to and just excuse me. What I wanted to say is that you could have not made it quite as tall if you wanted it to be a really tight beanie. Mine, I just like a tall body, you know, for my head, because like I said, I've got a lot of hair. So when I wear one, from my forehead up to my crown, I like to make sure I have a lot of room to take care of all of that, especially if I just want to wad it up in a ponytail, you know, and put all my hair up underneath my beanie. So what we're going to do is we're going to take both ends now, and I want to make sure that when I put the ends together, the row that I finished on, my loop here, my turning chain, is facing me. Get my yarn out of here. Grab my hook. Alrighty. Now what we're essentially going to do is we're just going to match these up, and we're going to create another row using our same stitch pattern that we had a moment ago. So you should have your chain 2 when you turned your work, and skipping the very first single crochet, we're going to go into this second single crochet and line it up with the second stitch on the other edge, and we're going to do our 2 single crochets. Skip the next stitch, go into the next one, line it up with the one from across on the other edge, and do 2 single crochets. Skip the next stitch, line it up, skip the next one on the other edge. We're going to do that all the way down. Skip, skip, now this is going to give you a seam for the inside, but a nice continuous flow from the outside. Skip, skip, and you can kind of see as you're going through there that it's automatically going to line up for you. Make sure, skip, yes, there we go. Yarn got a little tangled there. Skip, skip, and there we're lining up our last single crochets. There we go. And we'll pull me out some yarn there and show you what we've got so far. So see, we've got a nice seam here on the inside. It will lay flat like that, but look what we created on the outside. It's barely noticeable, but there it is right there. Alright, so now this is what will go around our head. Now what we need to do is look at, do we want to put a brim, excuse me, not a brim, edging for the bottom? I say yes. That way it'll kind of pull it in just a little bit. Now this is going to be a little slouchy, bunchy on your head. So if this is not the type of beanie that you like, then excuse me, it may not be for you, but I really like it because, like I said, I like fluffy beanies. But it is, I think once we get finished with it that you'll really like it. Alright, so before we start putting the topper on, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of cinch in this top just a little bit. So what I want you to do is I want you to go along the top edge here, which is the end of each row, and I want you to put 1 single crochet in each one. So we're going to start right here where our seam is, and we're going to put 1 single crochet. And then as I come over, here's the end of that next row, and I'm going to put a single crochet. I'm also going to hide my tail from my starting chain as I go, so that way I don't have to go back and stitch it in. As you can see, you'll kind of be able to see where the end of the row is, so we can put our single crochet in there, and this will just help us to cinch it up a little bit before we get ready to put our little topper on. So just 1 single crochet in the top of each of those rows, and I will meet you back at the beginning here in just a moment. Alright, I'm coming back around to my first single crochet. I've gone into the last row, top of the row here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to come right in to that very first single crochet. I can find, there we go. And I'm going to slip stitch to join the row. Okay. Now we're going to chain one and we're going to go all the way around again, except this time every fourth stitch we are going to do a decrease. So I'm going to go right back into my joining stitch here. There's one single crochet, 2, 3, 4, and the next stitch, over the next 2 stitches, I'm going to combine them to make one. Now when I do my decrease, I don't really like for it to show, and not that it's going to show much here, but when I do a decrease, I will go in the front loop of the first stitch, the back loop of the next stitch, pull through both, and then just finish out like a regular single crochet. And you can just barely tell that it's different from the others. Now I know it's a little hard to see because of the color of yarn I have here, but we're going to start again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then in the next 2, remember we're going to combine to make one, so I'm going into the front loop of the first one, the back loop of the next one, pull my yarn through, and then finish out my single crochet. And what that's going to do is it's going to cinch in the top of our hat here so it's not so fluffy. 2, 3, 4, front loop, back loop, decrease. And I want you to do that all the way around. Now depending on the number of rows that you created, you may not end up when you come back to the 1, 2, just a minute, can't count and talk at the same time. When you come back to the beginning over here, you may not have 1, 2, 3, 4 and then can do a decrease, but you just kind of make it fit when you get back here at the beginning. And I'll show you what I mean when I join you here in the last few stitches of this decrease row. Back in a minute. Alright, I've come down to the end of this decrease row, and I've noticed that I'm going to not have enough 1, 2, 3, 4, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to do 2 single crochets and then do a decrease. And like I said, depending on the number of rows that you had initially, you may have to do a little adjustment there. So that's the chain 1, and there's my single crochet from the beginning. So I'll just slip stitch into the top there and chain 1. Now hopefully that has made your hat, you know, where it's not too loose on the top of your head. If it is still a little too loose, you can do another row of decrease, which I believe I will do for mine. So I'm going to single crochet in the first stitch, and this time I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and then the decrease stitch. Now like I said, if you're happy with the stretchiness there around your brim, then that's okay. You can just skip this row. 1, 2, 3, then decrease. Yeah, I think I'm going to need that for this one here. Alright, and I will meet you back at the end of the row here, and then we'll finish off the hat. I'm back around to the beginning of this row, and looks like I'll have enough to do 1, 2, 3. No, I won't. Alright, so I'm just going to do 2 single crochets and then again a decrease. Now you don't have to do this. I just don't like having that big expanse of no decreases, which sometimes happens from the beginning and the end of the row. And we're going to go right in there, slip stitch to join the row. Sorry about that. And you should really start seeing now the top of your hat coming in. We're going to go do one more decrease, and then I'm going to show you a really cute idea for putting a topper on the top of the hat if you don't like making pom-poms or don't want to put a faux pom-pom on there. Now, this is not my idea. I stole it from John Boy at John Boy Crochet. I did kind of alter mine a little bit, but I just think it is the cutest little topper. I did put it on one of my previous beanie patterns, and tell you what, folks, I really am in love with it. So this was not my idea, but it was John Boy's, and I'll show you what we'll do here in just a minute. Alright, so one more row of decreases. Chain 1, go back into that joining stitch there. So 1, 2, and our decrease stitch. 1, 2, and the sorry about that, decrease stitch. And I'll meet you back around here in just a few minutes. Alright, so I'm going to chain 20 chains. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, oops, 10, 11, goodness, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Now that might look like a long chain to you, but I promise you, once we get to putting the single crochets in there, it's going to curl up on itself and it won't be quite as long as you think. Alright, so working in the second chain from the hook, remember the loop on the hook doesn't count, we're going to put in a single crochet in the top loop. I'm not going to be working in the back loop or that third loop as I normally do, because I want this to curl in on itself. We're going to work this all the way down into each chain, and you can tell that it's already starting to curl in on itself. And I just think it makes a really cute little topper on the top of the hat. Yeah, we just keep on going down here. And you see how it's curling in on itself? Isn't that cute? Okay, we're getting down here to the bottom. And when we get to that last single crochet, here we are. We are going to skip the next, well, this is the single crochet that we're working into. We're going to skip over to the next one and slip stitch. Alright, and then going into the very next single crochet, we're going to do a single crochet, and then we're going to chain 20 again. Fifteen, 16, 17, 18, 19, and 20. Now, you'll see that your little curly Q here starts out curling, and sometimes you may just have to kind of twist it to get it going, but it will. It'll curl up on itself here. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to single crochet into a stitch, chain 20 and then single crochet into each one of the chains back down, slip stitch into the next stitch, and then in the next stitch we'll single crochet and start over again. So I'll do this one with you to show you the process, and we'll go at it again. There's 20, second chain from the hook, single crochet, crochet all the way down in the top loop of each, I'm going to have to go back through there, each single crochet, there she goes, she's a curling up again. Sometimes it gets a little in the way of seeing where you're supposed to be crocheting. And as you can see, this one here is curling up a little more than the other one did. But you can always go back and help it along once you've made your row of single crochets out of the chain. Coming down to the end again. There is my last chain. Oops. Okay. Slip stitch into the next stitch, and then single crochet into the next stitch and start over again. And see, it doesn't take much to just kind of twist it around and it makes your little curlicue there. So I'm going to leave you and continue my little topper here, and I will meet you back around here at the end of the row, and then we'll finish off the top part of the hat. Alright, so I have come down here to the last of my little curlicues here that I made, and I've already slip stitched off, and I'm going to go right back into where I started, slip stitch again, tighten it down, do one more chain, and then I'm going to cut myself a little bit of string here, or excuse me, yarn. Alright, and then we're just going to go ahead and pull that on through. Might have cut too much, but that's alright. And tighten that down. Now what we're going to do is we're going to take and put this length of yarn that we've just cut off, and we're going to put it on our tapestry needle, and we're going to close up the top of our hat. Like I said, I pulled out quite a bit here, probably didn't need that much, but that's alright. And so what you're going to do is, whatever technique you like to use, but I'm just going to kind of go back here underneath each one of my little curlicue strings here that I made, and I'm just going to start weaving in and out to gather up the edge, being mindful of where my yarn is so that I don't get it caught up in one of these little, oops, I came down too far on that one. Pull that back up. See right there, I kind of got it wrapped around those guys. Alright. And that is all we're going to do. We're just going to come in and out every few stitches so that we can gather up the top here.
And I'm just going in and out right here underneath where this row is, where we did our little tassels. I don't like to put too much space in between where I'm going in and out. Just, you know, every couple of stitches or so. And it looks like we're coming back around to the beginning. In fact, we're already there. And I normally go just a couple of stitches beyond where I first started. Alright, and then we're just going to, making sure all our little loops are on the outside here. And we're just going to cinch that together. Alright, now I'm going to turn my hat. I'm going to take my needle and put it to the inside here. And I'm going to take my hat and turn it wrong side out. Alright. Now I pull this to the inside just so that I can kind of help cinch this up by coming through here and just stitching across a little bit. You know, just like you would on any other hat. Go to the inside to make sure you can tighten it down. And that's what I want to do here. I'm just going to go across that opening a few times. Just catching some loops across the opening. Go back this way a little bit. See what I can catch. There we go. And one more time. Gotta go right there. There we go. Alright, now I'm just gonna, no ma'am. Well, where am I gonna go? Thought I could go right there.
Lacy.
Okay. I'm just going to tie that down. Do that a couple of times. Oh goodness, I got into a really good tight spot there, didn't I? There we go. And I'm going to do it one more time. There we go. Now, like I said, yes, I did cut off quite a bit of string, but that's okay, because I can use it somewhere else later. Alright, and that takes care of the top part of our little hat. Now, you can go back and, you know, mess with your little curly cues, tighten them up some. Yes, I'm sure you can hear Lacey over there in the background. She's a little perturbed that we're not giving her the attention that she thinks she deserves. But she's okay. So I just think that makes a cute little topper on the hat. Back the camera up here a little bit so you can see it better. See all my other projects over here. Isn't that cute? Laid down like that. Alright, so now let's talk about the brim part here. What we're going to do is, let me bring the camera back down, is I'm going to come right here where the seam is, starting on the outside. I'm going to attach, I'm just going to go right into anywhere there at the top, pull up a loop with my yarn. Now you can attach this any way you like. And I'm going to chain one. And then just like we did on the top here, we're going to put one single crochet in each of the top of these rows all the way around. So starting here at this first one, I'm going to go in the top of this next row and make a single crochet. Into the top of the next row and make a single crochet. That's all we're going to do for this first round of the brim, is put a single crochet in the top of each row. And I'll meet you back at the beginning here in just a moment. Alright, I'm coming back around, putting one stitch there and one stitch here, and joining into that very first single crochet. Alright, now as you've noticed, this part of your hat is pretty stretchy. So before we finish off the brim, after this first row of single crochets, we're going to do a decrease row. And what we're going to do is we're going to chain 4 and we're going to decrease into that 5th stitch, taking the 5th and 6th stitch and turning them into 1. So just like we did on the top, we're going to chain 1, go back into this very first stitch here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, and now we're going to do our decrease stitch. So in the front loop of the first one, back loop of the next one, and single crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then front loop, back loop, pull those two together and makes your one stitch. We're going to do that all the way around, and depending on the number of rows that you had, you may end up with an even number there at the end, 1, 2, 3, 4, or as we saw at the top, we may have to make a little bit of an adjustment, but that's okay, because all we're using this row here for is to kind of cinch in the bottom of our hat before we finish out the brim. We'll meet you back at the beginning of the row in just a moment. Alright, I've come down to the end of this decrease row, and I've noticed that I'm going to not have enough 1, 2, 3, 4, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to do 2 single crochets and then do a decrease. And like I said, depending on the number of rows that you had initially, you may have to do a little adjustment there. So that's the chain 1, and there's my single crochet from the beginning. So I'll just slip stitch into the top there and chain 1. Now hopefully that has made your hat, you know, where it's not too loose on the top of your head. If it is still a little too loose, you can do another row of decrease, which I believe I will do for mine. So I'm going to single crochet in the first stitch, and this time I'm going to do 1, 2, 3, and then the decrease stitch. Now like I said, if you're happy with the stretchiness there around your brim, then that's okay. You can just skip this row. 1, 2, 3, then decrease. Yeah, I think I'm going to need that for this one here. Alright, and I will meet you back at the end of the row here, and then we'll finish off the hat. Alright, so I have come to the end of the beanie. Once I did that last row of decrease, I just added one more row of single crochets without decreasing anything. Now you can, if you want, you can be finished at this point. You can come back and add maybe a row of just slip stitching if you felt like it needed to be tightened up. You could go back and add a row of crab stitches if you'd like. I think I'm going to leave it alone just as it is. So I think using the alternate stitch made up a very, very pretty beanie. And you know, didn't even have to put this up here if you didn't like. I just wanted to give you an alternative to putting a pom-pom. You could leave it without, and I think it makes a very nice little beanie as it is. But I wanted to show you this pattern for a couple of reasons. One is you can use this technique of making a rectangle, doing the decrease rows as we did up here at the top. You can add this little curly Q beanie if you like, or you can just stop before we attach the beanies and go ahead and do your drawstring and pull it all together. And then you just come down and finish it off with a nice little couple of rows of single crochet decreases and then one row of single crochets to finish it out. But what I wanted to tell you about this is that in that rectangular piece, it looks good with any simple stitch such as the alternate stitch. It looks great with the sand stitch, with the moss stitch, with the double crochets, half double crochets, just anything that is just like a one row repeat. This little technique will make you a very nice, cute, simple beanie, and it doesn't take long to make at all. So I hope that you have enjoyed this tutorial, or a way to incorporate the alternate stitch other than just making a scarf. Like I said, as I was doing that, I thought, oh my goodness, this would look so cute as a little beanie. So I just felt like it was okay to go ahead and incorporate this into our basic stitches. So thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your attentiveness. Let me know if you make this beanie and what you think about it. Did you put the little curly Q topper on top, or did you leave it off? Did you do it in a solid color? Did you do it in a variegated color? Just tell me what it is that you did with this little pattern. As always, be the light out there in the darkness for someone, because you never know, could be your light that they need to sleep. Love y'all best. Bye.